Mayor. And let me recognize my colleagues, Congressman Bobby Scott, Congressman Steve Cohen, Congresswoman Marsha Fudge, all of whom have become co-sponsors of this bill and who also have huge unemployment rates in their district. Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee from Texas, who's coming in now, who really get it, and their commitment and dedication to the unemployed and to job creation is really unparalleled. So I want to thank all of you for joining us today and for being co-sponsors of this bill. As we stand here today, millions of workers are experiencing a true state of emergency. Too many people at every level of experience and skills have been out of work far longer than they ever imagined. These individuals are the backbone of our nation, are key to our economic recovery, but most importantly, they deserve to live the American dream also. But many of them today stand on the brink of personal financial ruin. I will continue as soon as Congressman Bobby Scott comes forward with his statement because he has a markup and so he needs to leave. And so I want to thank Congressman Bobby Scott for being the lead co-sponsor on this bill. We both introduced this together, we've been working on it for a long time now, and I want to thank him for his leadership. And also I want to thank Mr. Rosen and all of you for being here and for mounting the effort that you have mounted, because with the type of organization and the type of vision and the type of commitment that all of you have based on personal experience, but based on the fact that you know we have to create jobs also at the end of the day, I'm cautiously optimistic and hopeful, but we never know where we're going to get to until we do the work that has to be done and to stay focused and organized and committed to our cause. So thank you again, all of you, for being here. Congressman Bobby Scott.
Thank you, Representative Lee, and I want to thank my colleagues who are here today to talk about the legislation that would expand unemployment compensation to those hard-working Americans who've lost their job during this historic recession and have exhausted their unemployment compensation benefits. This legislation, the Emergency Unemployment Compensation Expansion Act, would add 14 additional weeks of unemployment, make that benefit available to all unemployed persons regardless of their employment conditions in their state. Congresswoman Lee and I introduced a similar bill at the end of the last session, but it did not reach the floor. It is our hope that this bill will receive some necessary support to help those unemployed Americans most in need. Now, critics of unemployment compensation believes it gives people an incentive not to work, but the fact is, and this chart shows, that there are more people looking for work than there are jobs. So a lot of people, regardless of how hard they look, are unable to be able to find work. People want to enjoy the dignity of work instead of collecting an unemployment check. The overwhelming majority of those unemployed want a hand up, not a hand out. They want a job, and unemployment compensation would, if passed, help them make ends meet until those jobs are available. Now, this not only will help those families, it'll also help the economy. Estimates are that for every dollar that's put in unemployment compensation, the economy is helped by $1.61. And that is in stark contrast to the impact that we have on other areas. For example, last year we passed some tax cuts. The economic impact on many of those tax cuts was 20 cents, not $1.61. This legislation is only part of a comprehensive approach that we need to get chronically unemployed people to work. We need a comprehensive training program to make sure they qualify for the jobs of the future. We also need a jobs creation programs. But the introduction of this legislation is no guarantee that it will actually pass, but we need to make sure that we work as hard as we can to help those who are most in need. And I want to thank again Representative Barbara Lee for her leadership in this legislation.
Thank you very much, Congressman Scott. And we know you have to leave for a markup of other members, so I'll give my statement and then we'll open for Q&A after we have Mr. Rosen and others speak. First of all, the numbers associated with this crisis of the long-term unemployed in our nation are really heartbreaking. And we have a moral obligation to help them recover from this economic recession. Of the 13.9 million unemployed workers, 6.2 million have been unemployed longer than 6 months. Data from the Congressional Research Service indicate that the older unemployed workers of color, and are more likely, African American workers, more likely to be out of work for more than 99 weeks than others. To be frank though, This is a state of emergency for everyone, and it needs to be addressed right now before millions of unemployed people fall into the ranks of the poor. Of course, we know that behind these numbers are the faces of people from every walk of life who are desperate and need help. These faces of the long-term unemployed represent every race, color, creed, education level, and all walks of life. And I refuse to simply ignore them while the numbers of the unemployed continue to grow. That's why I've joined with my colleagues, including Congressman Bobby Scott, as partners to introduce the Emergency Unemployment Compensation Expansion Act. Now, our bill would ensure that these long-term unemployed workers get the long time and the long overdue assistance that they need to support their families, make ends meet, and contribute to our economy. This legislation would add 14 weeks of benefits to emergency unemployment, and these benefits would be available to people who are unemployed or who have exhausted all of their benefits. Now, we did also, in addition to our legislation, we tried to include these provisions in the tax cut package that was passed a few months ago, but of course, these efforts were blocked. Instead of joining with us to fight for the long-term unemployed and underemployed who would need these benefits, the Republicans spent all of their energy sweetening the deal for the wealthy and the powerful. When they had a chance to stand up for these unemployed workers and give them some hope, all they did was give them a cold shoulder. So we recognize the difficult political environment that exists to pass this bill and the concerns about the cost of this legislation, but there's really a good reason why we have an emergency designation under the PAYGO spending rules, and that's the only reason that I reluctantly voted for PAYGO, because we do have an emergency designation. And if this isn't an emergency, what is? We have a duty not to look the other way. There's absolutely nothing pleasant about being unemployed. People are trying to survive day to day, and phone calls from across the country flood my office and all of our members' offices daily with stories of depression and loss of hope. The pain and the suffering of our unemployed Americans extends to their families and their children, and we should be protecting our brothers and sisters who are struggling to pay the bills and put food on the tables while they try to find work. Purely as a matter of fairness, Congress needs to stand up and show our true priorities. Why should the wealthy and the powerful continue to get tax giveaways and corporate welfare while struggling, low-income, unemployed, middle-income, the working poor, why do they need to be last in the line in terms of the benefits of our great country? But not only is this the right thing to do, it's really good economic policy that will support our economic recovery. Extending these benefits for the long-term unemployed will stimulate our economy and empower our communities. In fact, many experts believe that putting money into the pockets of people who will spend it contributes to economic growth and job creation, unlike the unpaid tax giveaways to the millionaires. Now, some folks have the audacity to argue that these people standing here with me today, some who have been without a job for well over a year or longer, are not trying hard enough to find a job and are lazy. You know, you hear that all the time. But the fact of the matter is, for every job opening in America, there are 4.7 million unemployed people. That's for every job opening. Shame on anyone who would push that kind of bogus rhetoric. These people in the room with us today, and millions more across the nation, aren't lacking the desire. They are lacking jobs. This is not about a self-motivated deficit. This is about a job deficit. And so we're asking Speaker Boehner to bring this bill to the floor. We want a vote on this bill. We want the Speaker and we want the Republicans to match their rhetoric with action. We want to bring this vote to the floor and stand with these unemployed workers and millions more across the nation who are looking to Congress for solutions. And yes, we know and we recognize that job creation has to be the ultimate goal, because all of these individuals want to work. And while we try to figure that out, these people deserve to survive. And so we're asking our Speaker to bring this to the floor, asking him to do it under an emergency designation. If they won't do that, we are telling him today and telling the Republicans and the majority that we are working to find offsets. When you look at the huge tax cuts that the wealthy received under this last tax package, when you look at the defense budget, when you look at all of the resources that our country has that are misprioritized, certainly we can find an offset.